Innocence. Strength. Madness. Qualities that you immediately gather from someone by looking at their eyes. There's no other body part that can convey someone quite like the eyes can. Oftentimes we don't even realize we're making judgments on someone just by seeing their eyes alone, but we do. And we're very good at it. The eyes tell you if a person is feeling guilt or pride, whether that person is present or not, or if you can trust someone or not. This is why in animation, eyes are so tricky to nail. Slight faults or minor mistakes start a snowball effect in our brain where we notice the mistake, question why we see it, and then we can't unsee it. All this happens just like that. It's very clear to me that the creators of ReZero and the animation team also understand this, and went the extra mile to make the eyes of their characters wholly important to their design. Through the eyes of these characters, we're given a healthy dose of happiness or dread, depending on which glance you get, and from who. So what do the creators of ReZero do to make the characters stand out ocularly? That's what we'll find out in this video. And as a little side quest, we'll also discuss how it contributes to the horror of the series as a whole. This is The Eyes of ReZero. I have a confession to make. I never had a waifu. Yes, I swear this is on topic. Not once did it cross my mind that there was a fictional girl that I was to have reverence for to the extent that some people do. So many people around me did have one though, and I almost felt like the cool kid outside the box with no waifu to his name. I beat the system. I made myself different and better than everyone else. For a whole 19 years it stayed this way. And then Rem happened. Rem is by far the most popular character of ReZero, and it's not even close. Her reach expands beyond the show in a very different way than the main character, or even the main love interest of the show. There are many videos that are much better than this, explaining why Rem is so unanimously loved by the community. But all you really need to know is that she is cute, and she likes the main character a lot. This wasn't always the case, if you remember. Rem at one point in the show was one of the most terrifying characters who threatened to end every loop Subaru started, whether it was by Morningstar or by Fist. She was there as one of the very first big roadblocks for Subaru. Rem's reason for being this metaphorical roadblock is not without purpose, though. While it isn't apparent on first watch, one picks up on it eventually. The real reason Rem hated Subaru was because Subaru was smelly. No, not that kind of smelly, but Subaru had the witch's scent. And that made him immediately suspicious to anyone and everyone he encountered with a keen sense of smell. Rem wanted nothing to do with all that business because of her past, and so she slaughtered him, before he even had a chance to become what she feared he was in her mind.
Do you have any notion of the consequences of your blunder?
This was the first few loops, though. By the third loop, Subaru had put together that it was Rem who was killing him when she, killed him. 2 loops later, one of my favorite group of scenes plays out, where Subaru is acting overly cutesy with Rem, and she's just having none of it. Her eyes were narrowing, and her chin was angled towards the floor, and her stance was totally still and controlled, which juxtaposed Subaru's frantic and quick motions. This difference in body language is just terrifying. You already know what they're both thinking, and where it's gonna go if something doesn't change. To this day, I still get goosebumps seeing this look on Rem's face, and how her eyes change from inviting and round to sharp and vicious. and towards Subaru of all people. We all know where it goes from there, though. Long story short, Subaru gets a little life lesson from Amelia with one of the best lines of the show.
It's been rough, hasn't it?
And Rem comes to trust Subaru after he saved her life twice in about a day. So that leads us to the Rem everyone has come to know and love, which is Moe Rem. I don't want to go too much in depth with Moe Rem, just because it doesn't apply to the theme of this video quite as well as the first example. But keep in mind, there were many characters I could have chosen for this video to look at. And many, even during script writing, I've had to cut just for time. But I couldn't skip over Rem. Not because she's a cash cow for ReZero content, well, okay, she is, but it's really because all the hype around her is real. She really is all that, and I have every reason to believe a large factor of that is scenes like this, where we see exactly how she feels in her eyes. It's impressive how much power this small part of our body has in stirring emotions and telling a good story. Her eyes were so powerful, in fact, that they had to nerf and close them for almost the entire second season. Fuck! The titular character of ReZero may have the second most important eyes of the whole series. Second only to, well, you know who. Throughout the whole series, everyone always talks about Subaru's eyes like they're negative to the perception of him. And it's not hard to understand why they say Subaru has mean and uninviting eyes. I mean, just look at them. Yet, throughout all the criticism, his eyes show more than just that anger. There's no doubt that in the whole series, we see every part of Subaru, warts and all, for better or for worse. Hell, even my girlfriend still thinks he's an asshole that doesn't deserve Rem or Amelia. Nonetheless, we see his eyes go from true anger and hatred to pure elation, to soul-crushing terror. I thought it would be fun to look at just one moment from the story, and make a point about Subaru's range and ocular motion despite first glance. While his ability to return by death sounds appealing at first, looking into it a little further, you realize the horrors and trauma that can come from watching others die and dying yourself over and over and over and over and over again. There isn't a moment that I think exemplifies this better than at the very end of Season 1. Let me set the scene. After parting ways with Rem, Subaru defeats the witch's cult and finally rids himself of the biggest threat to end all of his loops, for the time being. After this, he reunites with Amelia after saving her and many others' lives, almost at the cost of his own though. As he's recovering, he and Amelia talk about the circumstances of their relationship, and Subaru admits to her that he's in love with her, and will do whatever it takes to have her say it back to him. Amelia seems pleased with this, as does Subaru. That's where Season 1 ends officially, until you take a look at the director's cut. All of those events play out about the same until the supposed ending. It doesn't stop there, folks, but instead keeps going, with Amelia and Subaru in the back of a wagon, sitting together in a satisfied silence. They start talking again before Subaru realizes that he and Rem's relation to each other has slightly altered since he last saw Amelia. He fills her in on the situation reluctantly. Surely, after all the talk of "I love you, Amelia," was going to backfire when he told her Rem loves him like he loves her. To his absolute surprise, though, Amelia responds not with anger, but with confusion.
I'm confused. Who is Rem?
The moment you see Subaru's pupils dilate in his eyes, you already know what's coming. But it still hits you like a truck. It's absolutely haunting to think that he had gotten everything right, only to realize a force outside of his control cut his happy ending away. If I'm to be totally honest, Subaru is the entry-level discussion of ReZero's character design in the eyes. They're mentioned time and time again, and much of what I pointed out is me rehashing what has already been said. It's hard to look deep into his eyes and read him like that, because by his very design, his eyes are deceptive. They hide many complex emotions behind what we'd consider a stereotypically mean design. In reality, it couldn't be further from the truth. What I personally love about his eyes is that they are not just angry looking, but also determined. In Subaru's eyes, we see someone with a leave no one behind attitude, and that's exemplified by his hard-ass, stubborn eye shape. The stubbornness only lends itself to his no-quit lifestyle. So I look forward to where Subaru's character will be in the future. With all of this development, he'll surely be a true hero by the end of the story. Just probably not as good of a hero as Wilhelm van Astrea. Now we arrive at the character who inspired me to make this video in the first place. Yes, indeed, it was not the main character, nor the cult favorite, but a side character with about as much time on screen as Elsa, but the emotional impact of a main character. This guy is one of the most pivotal of the second half of Season 1, and is shaping up to be equally important in Season 3. Wilhelm is introduced into ReZero as a humble coach driver for one of the rivaling camps in the Royal Selection. Our first encounter with him tells us a lot about who he is, but not why he is. Even without knowing his backstory, I want you to think about how this character may act just off of his eyes and face alone. If you're seeing what I am, and I'm not insane, then you're looking at an elderly gentleman, and with many years of wisdom to use and dispense. A man who's had a family, and possibly even seen action on the battlefield. Someone who's focused, and doesn't regard distractions without thinking his situation through. These are all true for Wilhelm, and all of it is evident in just how he carries himself. Just going off of his first appearance, Wilhelm already has importance in the show by not even saying a word. The more we're drip-fed info on him, though, the more alluring he becomes as a character. Fun fact, according to Tape Nagatsuki? Wilhelm was originally a one-off character, but people were drawn in by the aura he gave off in test versions of the original story. So our guy made him into who he is now by giving him all the backstory. One of Wilhelm's most important moments happens here. We can see that Subaru is pitching an offer to the crochet camp so that all of his friends don't, well, die. In return, he will give away the next guaranteed location. Watch how Wilhelm responds to this offer.
The white whale? Please forgive my indiscretion.
Wilhelm's eyes have fascinated me. They have a vastly different design compared to the rest of the eyes in the show, which makes them immediately stand out. This scene goes to exemplify his hardened will and fighting spirit. But that's not all. We later find out that he's had a pretty tragic life. While he fought in great wars and built up a reputation for himself, his wife, the Sword Saint Theresia, died to one of the 3 great maw beasts in the world, the white whale. He then made it his life mission to track down the whale and kill it, no matter the cost to him or the others in his family. When he first meets Subaru Natsuki, he senses the same ambition from him as he did with himself all those years ago. That means when Wilhelm hears Subaru boldly claiming he knows where the white whale will be next, and that they can kill it, it's as though life is handing him his dream on a silver platter. With all that context behind you, watch this scene again.
The white whale? Please forgive my indiscretion.
You could interpret this as Wilhelm feeling anger towards the beast that killed his wife, and he probably is, but what I see is someone who's secretly terrified that more chaos could come from something that has caused him so much pain. Instead of running, though, he will fight. Not a word was spoken to show you that, though. Just Wilhelm's distraught and strong eyes. This was one of the first moments that the concept for this video really sunk in for me, and why Wilhelm is one of my personal favorite characters in all of ReZero. Where does that leave us, though? Sure, the eyes play a role in making a character who they are, but how does the show use them in a way that's different from others? Well, through watching the show back recently, I kept noticing these little moments. They didn't happen all the time. They were frequent enough, though, to carry a message all on their own. I'm of course talking about cut-ins, or in this case, what I would describe more as flashes. It's a momentary close-up of a character that reveals a little about what they're thinking, without usually saying much in the way of dialogue. It's quite common in other anime, but there's something that caught me unawares about the way ReZero uses them. Perhaps it's the quickness of it, trusting the audience picked up on your little hint, which is a very difficult thing to do, or maybe it's the fact that the show is a mystery and that you're trying to solve with the protagonist. And every little hint like that means so much more because of it. I truly don't know how to put it into words properly. But this show forces emotions out of you. It forces you to think about alternatives, about different ways the main character can solve his problems instead of just leading you on the right path to begin with. You have to earn the path, just like Subaru. With all of that, these shots are typically only showing a character's eyes, I noticed. So I got to work on the internet. There were several studies I read about eyes in preparation for this video. One that particularly caught my attention was, it was a mouthful, individual differences in personality predict how people look at faces. Yeah. In this study, researchers looked into the effect that viewing others' facial expressions, especially the eyes, has on the brain. They did this by showing pictures of faces over a computer screen that showed several different emotions to willing participants. The emotions included in the photos were happy, sad, disgusted, fearful, etc. After the participants viewed all the images each for about 3 seconds, the tests showed that there was a decently strong correlation between looking at fearful faces and neuroticism. If you're like me, that didn't make too much sense, so let me explain it a little more. Neuroticism is one of the 5 neo-personality inventory feelings that scientists believe impacts our personality the most. You can take a test online to get your results if you're curious. Here's mine. Keep in mind there is a $10 paywall to get the full report, but seeing the whole report with recommendations on self-improvement is very helpful in my opinion. I'll leave a link to it in the description. Anyway, neuroticism is a tendency toward anxiety, depression, self-doubt, and other negative feelings, according to Psychology Today. So, basically Gen Z in a nutshell. In this context, the more the participants looked at faces which portrayed a typically negative emotion, the more the level of neuroticism grew. It was also shown that there was more neuroticism for looking specifically at the eyes of the disgusted or fearful faces. And then it hit me all of a sudden. When connecting all the dots with the horror elements, the fearful faces, the attention to detail in eye shape, and the emotional impact on the story, you can really only come to one conclusion. ReZero is secretly a horror. Or at least an anime with a lot of horror elements, but disguised as a cute isekai. The way they achieve their subtle horror is by perfecting the animation of faces, specifically eyes, and increasing your level of neuroticism whenever a traumatic event happens to Subaru. You will see his pain, his suffering, his remorse, and his reactions because without them, there's no weight to his trauma. It's a method that's common in other horror media when you think about it. But be honest, How many PG-13 movies show the face of a dead character whenever they're actually dead in a brutally realistic fashion? Not many. And it's because if they did, the level of neuroticism in the audience would blow that sucker right up to a rated R flick. It's just something about seeing it in animation is so haunting. Aside from even the uncanny valley, kudos to the animation team and Tappe for being willing to probably give kids nightmares about this for the sake of the story's weight. Whether it was Rem being suspicious of Subaru, Wilhelm reacting to the white whale comment, Subaru realizing Rem is possibly gone, all of them just fill you right up with dread for what is to come in the future. That's where the magic lies, my friends. And we were staring it right in the eyes this whole time. Okay, this show has been talked about to death. The plot points, the backstories, or even the if stories have been covered, along with everyone's opinion that lives on planet Earth with a Crunchyroll account. With all the content you can find on this platform, it's incredible how there is still more to talk about. I was really excited to challenge myself and make a slightly more scientific video about a show that I very much love. To the ReZero community, you guys are awesome. We're holding this show on our backs as a secret contender for one of the best anime in the world when no one else will believe us, so good work. I'm excited for Season 3 of the show, and to all of my lovely viewers, I hope you had a great holiday season, and I'll be seeing you again very soon. This is Shaniks, signing out.